I say this every time about how excited I am to talk to the guests that I have on the podcast each week. But this one, I'm telling you, we go way back. This is Rick Emmitt, my man, Rick Emmitt. He is now the head coach of Drury University, the bass fishing team there. And Rick and I go way back. I'm so excited to have a conversation with Rick. We used to work under the Bass Pro Shops umbrella years ago. There's so much to talk about. The rise of college fishing. This is going to be really, really exciting. Let's get started.
This isn't another fishing podcast. This is another fishing podcast.
Boy, it's been a minute, as they say nowadays. Been a minute. But it's really great to see you, and I've wanted to have this conversation for with you for a while now, because there's so much going on, in the sport of bass fishing, in particular with college fishing. And when I was growing up, just like I'm sure it was the same with you as well. Like, although you were living in Springfield, Missouri when you were growing up, right?
Oh yeah, that's where I'm originally from, the home of Bass Pro Shops, as you know. So yeah, I've been here pretty much all my life.
Yeah, so it was a little bit different. I was growing up in Northern California, basically part-time in Minnesota, the summers in Minnesota. But it was like I was getting stuffed in lockers if I admitted I fished. That's not true. That's a bit of an exaggeration. But it was like everybody's like surfing and skating, and it wasn't exactly cool to be a bass fisherman when I was growing up. And that is all changed. It's so awesome to see what's happening. I mean, I see on social media just the popularity of bass fishing. I see with lure companies making the most amazing works of art with lures, everything. It's just like the golden age of fishing. And for young kids growing up, I see like such enthusiasm about wanting to get into pro fishing or wanting to get into the industry. So I just thought this would be a really fun conversation to have with you because, you've also got, you've got such an incredible history. Not even just, it goes way before you got involved with Drury, so I'm really excited. I'm just rambling right now, but I'm really excited to talk to you, Rick.
So basically, you're telling me I'm old, is what you're trying to say.
Well, listen, here's the reality, man. We're both getting up there. I can't believe all the gray I'm getting. My wife's like, gosh, your beard's getting really gray. I'm like, yeah. And so I got thinning hair. I got a big bald spot back here now. But, what are you going to do?
I just found out an hour ago I'm a grandpa for the first time, so I'm pretty excited. I didn't get much sleep. I was excited just thinking about it. So
congratulations. Maybe a future a bass fishing fiend like we are.
I will have a fishing rod in his hand for sure, and his dad will have a basketball and a baseball, no doubt. But we'll try to get him involved. My son never caught the bug of fishing. He was always a baseball and basketball player, played on traveling teams and everything. So I'm hoping to get Jax, my new grandson, into fishing for sure.
Well, congratulations. Very, very happy for you, Rick.
Thank you.
That is excellent news to hear. I guess probably what makes the most sense to sort of get started here is like how we kind of know each other. We both started, I started Bass Pro Shops in 2000, went right out of college, fresh out of college. And you were up in Tracker Marine, correct? You were so at headquarters in Springfield, Missouri. The Bass Pro Shops, the main floor of Bass Pro Shops was on. Well, it was on the first floor, and the second floor was all Tracker Marine. And you were working up there, right, Rick? And
yeah.
You were, if I'm not mistaken, you were working a lot with the pro staff, correct?
Well, when I first started, I was in technical service. When I first started, it was in 1985 over at the showroom, and I sold boats part-time while I was going to college. And as boat sales developed, people were driving from all across the country to Springfield, Missouri to pick up their bass trackers and their pontoon boats and everything. So we sold a lot of boats and to people that would come and pick them up, but Johnny realized that he needed a distribution channel, with the dealer network, because only so many people are going to drive, from all across the country to come to Springfield, Missouri. So Johnny developed a dealer network, and then I went over and started working for the dealer network in technical services. So I went from boat sales to technical services, and I had many different roles over the years. I retired 2 years ago after 37 years with the company, but the last 14 of those years I did manage our pro team, and as a fisherman, that was probably the greatest gig in the world. When you talk to Kevin Van Dam and Bill Dance and Edwin Evers and Jacob Wheeler, I mean, it was as an angler, it was just the ideal job. So I was been very blessed to know Johnny Morris and to grow up, kind of in the Bass Pro family. And for a few years, I managed our video shoots, and I think that may have been when we started working together, or it may have been where I was just, some talent on some of the photo shoots or whatnot.
Yeah, I'm not sure when, exactly that moment, when we met and developed a friendship, but it might have been then. It might have been because I had worked on some tracker boat shoots for sure. Also had the real honor to be in a tracker, a Nitro commercial with Van Dam 100 years ago.
I remember that.
Yeah, so that was really that to me is like one of the as a kid that was eaten up with this sport, to have been able to do that, finagle my way in there, and get into a commercial with Van Dam. That was one of my great accomplishments in my life. I'm not even kidding you, Rick.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of when we noticed you could be on air talent and not just behind the scenes with the camera, And
well,
your gift of gab was noticeable.
Yeah, honestly, I just love fishing. I really don't, as far as like video production and. I have a very narrow, how would I say, interest as far as video production. It's like there's fishing. I love video production and fishing, a few other areas, but I've just grown up watching fishing shows, just like I'm sure you did. And so and when you have a passion, especially early on, it just kind of consumes you, and that's like, video. That's why I went to college. I wanted to be, it's another reason why I wanted to talk to you. A big reason why I wanted to talk to you is because what you're doing with the coaching of these young kids. I wanted to be, I went to college. I wanted to be a professional bass fisherman. My college didn't have a coaching program, which is so fantastic that that's happening now. But, so really video production for me was, and everything that video production entails, that was my fallback plan. And so, it's just funny how everything's worked out. But with what's, with you, I mean, I don't know. I hope they're paying you enough there at Drury University, because you bring a hell of a lot to the table here. Because not only do you have such insights with the biggest pros in the industry, let's face it, Bass Pro Shops had the biggest pros. Sponsors the biggest pros. So you had that insight into what that was like, if you wanted to pursue for these young kids in your program, wanting to pursue a professional fishing career, but also, and maybe, more importantly, how the industry itself works, the fishing industry itself works. So I can't think of a better person to have a head coaching job in professional, in a bass fishing system like, college system like what they're doing there at Drury. That's amazing.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I do kind of use my industry experience even in the recruiting process. I can kind of open some doors for these anglers, these college anglers, as they come to Drury, just with my industry contacts, my experience, like you say, managing the top pro fishermen in the industry. I kind of know how the game works, and I know the importance of sponsor support and what you need to do, to recruit and keep sponsors. So yeah, it actually, you remember Charlie Campbell.
Yeah, of course.
Uh,
Yeah.
Charlie recommended me, it was 2015, as I was still working, full time with Bass Pro and White River Marine Group, which is the boat side of the business, and managing the pro team. He, as Drury wanted to develop the program as college fishing took off, and even back in 2015, we had no idea that it would become what it's become today. But anyway, Charlie recommended me to the athletic director at Drury and said Rick would probably be interested in, helping you part-time develop a program. So I accepted it, and I did. And I was thinking at the time, it might just be a few weekends out of my year, and I could still do it full-time, my normal job full-time. Well, as it's grown, and there's 3 different collegiate circuits that we fish, and man, we'll fish 20, 25 tournaments a year. We fish more than the pros do,
Wow.
number of events, but it's grown to what it's become today. And it, the door opened for me to become a full-time coach a couple years ago when COVID hit. We had to make, like every business, we had to make some adjustments, to our bottom line, and cut back on some of our pro staff. And I was having to make some really uncomfortable calls. And, I was not only business partners, but friends with all these pro anglers. And it was really tough for me to make phone calls that, we had to cut back some. And I was getting waking up at night a little bit, not looking forward to some of those things. So Drury approached me with the possibility of doing this full time, and I thought about it and visited with my wife, and actually called Johnny Morris and said, Johnny, I've done everything pretty much I can at Bass Pro Shops in White River for 37 years. I really enjoy working with these young anglers and kind of helping them, fulfill their dreams of fishing in college, and told him that, I'm thinking about doing this full time. And he said, I understand. And your dad would be proud of you. As you know, my dad, he was always interested in getting kids and youth involved in fishing. So I thought about it and accepted the full-time position. And I've been doing this now for 2 years full-time, but it's really become a full-time job. I mean, with the tournament schedule, with recruiting, with expense reports and budgets and all the things you have to do, on a daily basis. It's just been something that I've just really been blessed to be able to have this opportunity to work with these young kids, and it's very rewarding to me. And I don't even really look at it as a job. I mean, it's just I'm going to do this till I decide to permanently retire, and I may do it even longer than that because I just love doing it. I mean, it's just college fishing, how it's grown is just simply amazing. You and I didn't have it, when we went to college, and if we did, we may still be in college fishing. Be on the 15-year plan, but
Yeah, I was on the 5-year plan. What's another 10 years?
I have to say I was even longer than that. But,
Yeah, I think I was too. Honestly, it was longer than 5 years.
yeah.
Yeah. So you can probably tell, folks listening. I don't like to use the term folks. Folks listen, whatever.
Folks at home,
Folks at home listening. Rick has got an unbelievable, just such a. You have an incredible temperament, and just like your dad, everybody loved your dad. I don't know that anyone that dislikes you. Maybe some of the people that you had to kind of say, hey, that we're going to have to, lessen your sponsorships or whatever. But just the fact you telling that story of how hard that was, I can't imagine how hard that is. When you have to make those calls to anglers that could be struggling, who knows? There's a lot of trials and tribulations being a professional bass fisherman, and that. And so having to make those calls, I completely understand how stressful that had to be. But it's a testament though to who you are and just how genuine and just a great human being you are. And I'm not trying to blow smoke. I really feel that way. I've always felt that way about you. You're just an honest dude. Honest as the day is long. And you've got this sensibility that when I lived down, in Missouri and then Oklahoma, it's a wonderful part of the country because people are so good and honest and just and welcoming. And I miss that. I miss that. And talking with you now and just I just want to say I just always I had always admired how you conducted yourself and just I just want to say you're one of the good ones, Rick.
Well, man, that means a lot to me for you to say that. I appreciate that. I've felt the same way about you, and always, we had a professional relationship, but also a friendship as well. So, no, that means a lot for you to say that. And, my dad was very respected in the fishing industry. He was Johnny Morse's first fishing tackle manager at the showroom. And like you say, I never had heard anyone in the industry say a bad word about my dad. And that's kind of how I wanted to live my life. And I don't think I can live up to that, but, I'm trying to do my best. And I did have some frustrated people when I had to make some of those adjustments and phone calls, but they understood it was a business decision and, wasn't necessarily coming from me, but they got it. Professional bass fishing, it's difficult to prove the return on investment and show the return on investment. Nowadays with social media, it helps. You can show your fans and subs and all that, but that was one of the first places that we had to look is our promotional teams when business is tough, so yeah.
It's not easy to navigate, and I am not, I've thought about, when I worked in, the corporate environment and then working for a television production company, I'd see those difficult decisions being made, and I just was like, oh my goodness, I got nervous just thinking about it. I put myself in, first of all, the people's shoes that were maybe getting fired or whatever, but then also the people's shoes that had to make those calls. In either way, it's very, very uncomfortable. So, but with someone with your disposition, I imagine it's got to be even more difficult. So, but let's move on to more positive topics.
Yes, indeed.
But
that was a long time ago. Yeah.
No, I know. But I do find it interesting, though. It is part of the business. This is a business. If people, young kids listening, it is important, that you realize that if you want to do this for a living, it is a business, and you got to work your tail off, and it's not all sunshine, rainbows, unicorns, double rainbows. It can be. I've enjoyed my career doing this, and Rick's no doubt has as well. But it's life. It's got its ups and downs, and just go into it knowing that and do the best you can. And there's a lot you can, if you're passionate about fishing. There's a lot that you can do in this industry and help to just, like what Rick's doing. It's a prime example of this. Just raising awareness that bass fishing is a sport. It's a legitimate sport. It takes a ton of talent, just like any other sport. And so if you're a passionate angler out there and, young angler, and you want to get into the industry, I encourage you to do that. Bring that passion. We need more passionate people in fishing. But I wanted, speaking of passion, so, Rick, you're a super, your whole life you've been a passionate angler. When did that start? Like, tell me the story of how that passion of yours, in particular with bass fishing, just how that grew.
Yeah, I've been fishing as long as I can remember. My dad, always fished, and I grew up with a fishing pole in my hand, I think. The story I can remember probably the best is I was 10 years old, and me and my dad and mother were fishing at Bull Shoals Lake around K-Dock, if you happen to know that area. And I can remember throwing a man's jelly worm and catching a 5-pound bass. And I got it in on an old Zebco 33 with a little wet noodle rod. I don't know how I got it in compared to the equipment we have now. But Dad netted it, and I think he was more excited than I was, although I was pretty excited. But took Polaroid pictures, and I remember Dad displaying those at the sporting goods store, a Cat sporting goods store years ago, and just he was just as excited or more than I was. And that's when I really can remember getting the bug on bass fishing. I do remember even younger, my grandparents had a trailer down at Lake Taneycomo. I think he probably fished it a few times. And
Yep.
I can remember fishing off the dock, catching 50 bluegill a day, putting them on a stringer. It wasn't catch and release back then. But, bluegills are pretty good to eat anyway. But I can remember, just throwing worms off the dock, and just the thrill of that bite and setting the hook and the fight and getting them in. It's just, it's just gets in your blood, as you know, being an angler. So it just goes back as long as I can remember. But catching that 5-pounder at 10 years old, I just wanted to fish all the time. I had, other sports that I played and whatnot, but just angling's just been a big part of my life ever since that. I can remember Dad getting his Bassmaster magazines, and, when he was done reading them, I would get them, and Bill Dance, Blake Honeycutt, Roland Martin, some of those, guys back then winning tournaments. And it's just something that was just a passion of mine and always has been.
Yeah, for me, I've told this story, probably way too many times now. But yeah, I got into fishing, just multi-species fishing first. But I saw I saw a flyer for Bassmaster, the television show. There's like a flyer in a bait shop somewhere. And I'm like, what's this? I look at this flyer. I'm like, what is this professional bass fishing? You can be a competitive bass fish. You can be a competitive fisherman. This was all news to me, And so, and then it was on the Nashville network, and luckily we had the Nashville network. So it was on Sundays. I think it was like in the afternoon or something.
Well, I can remember it being in like Sunday, like at 7 or 8 p.m.
Yeah.
I think, I remember. Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. Because I was in California and it was on at like 5.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it was on at like 5, and it was a religious experience, and so that show really hooked me on professional bass fishing and like wanting to do it. And I was just eating up from then on, and this I don't know if you can see that right there. That's a picture of Bob Cobb. It's a sketch.
Oh, yeah.
Of Bob Cobb. And I worked on a TV show called Bass Insider. And that sketch was done for the TV show. And I actually had Randy White, who also used to work at Bass Pro Shops.
Yeah, I remember Randy.
Yeah, in the video department. He worked with Bob Cobb on a shoot, and he had him sign it for me. So that's that's
cool. Yeah.
And I see all the memorabilia you have behind you too. We have a love of this thing, man. There is no doubt. So
yeah, for sure.
So what was that transition like, jumping into your role now as the head coach? Go into that, because you're talking about Charlie Campbell recommended you for the job, but what was that first like? Just like taking the reins of that thing, and then go through like how you recruit young anglers. Like what's the whole job entail?
Yeah. When I first started, of course, I was doing it part-time, and it was just starting to grow. The season was already underway, so I wasn't able to recruit the first year, and probably not much even into the second year. But so the first year I had to take people that were already going to Drury, that liked to fish, but didn't necessarily have tournament experience. So that first year, or actually first couple years, was pretty challenging. We had trouble even coming up with bass boats to use to compete. But I think there was 2 individuals that had actually ever even fished a bass tournament in their life. So those first couple years were quite was quite a learning experience for us. We were not very good, I'll say that for sure, but we learned, and the kids had the passion. And as I was developing a little bit more, able to develop more time into it, I was recruiting. And Missouri has a really big high school fishing program now, and I would become familiar with some of those high school anglers and present our program to them. And I was able to start recruiting, in Missouri and even into Arkansas a little bit. And as that developed, I was able to get a little bit better anglers with some tournament experience. And I did use my experience in the industry to kind of help in the recruiting process. That guys, thought it was pretty cool when I could bring Rick Clunn or Brian Snowden or Edwin Evers or some of the local guys, anglers up to talk to them, in class. That was just like unbelievable, to bring Rick Clunn up there and pick his brain for an hour with questions. And so that helped my recruiting process actually with my experience. And as we recruited better anglers, we developed, some success and started fishing all 3 of the circuits and competing for School of the Year, which is kind of like your national ranking. And within the last 3 years, we finished in 8th place, 7th place 2 years ago, and 6th place last year in the national rankings. And we actually won an MLF national championship in 2021, which was a pretty big deal, obviously. And then we won 3 events last year. We won 2 MLF and 1 Bassmaster event. So as we've had success, and that's allowed me to, people are contacting me now from all across the country wanting to come to Drury to fish and compete. So it's really, really cool how it's grown and how our program's grown. And, the success we've had is just opened up some doors that, I never thought in a million years I would grow up to become a bass fishing coach, at a college. Who knew? But yeah, the direction it's going, and the guys and gals that are coming to Drury to fish, first and foremost, they're coming for their education, but a lot of them want to either be pro anglers or fish at the next level at some circuit, or be in the fishing industry. And I can kind of open some doors for them there, and it's just really neat to see their passion and see their skills. And most of these anglers are as good or better than I am, especially with electronics. And as you know, how electronics have developed over the years, the kids I'm recruiting now have more skill at that and finding the fish and using forward-facing technology. Which, some of us old timers are not as good at it, and some people even, frown on electronics and technology and how it's, helped improve bass fishing. But in some regard, it's a really good thing, because it gives us the opportunity when we go to a lake we've never fished before. Then that's a huge advantage without electronics for these schools that have experience on that lake. We couldn't compete if we didn't have electronics. We couldn't go out and side scan and find the brush piles and use forward-facing technology. It's kind of helped level the field in some regards, where without that, there's no way, we can compete. It's a home lake advantage is huge without that. So
I hadn't thought about that, but that's an excellent point. Side scanning and that technology. Forward-facing sonar, but side scanning in particular, where you could see where brush piles are. That I had not thought about that. I think the technology is amazing, but I've had when I've thought more about how it could be like, wow, basically everybody can find where everything is now, and I've looked at maybe the more negative impacts of that, but potential negative impacts, I should say. But no, as far as like, if a criticism I've had with competitive bass fishing is like, yeah, there's definitely advantage of these guys on local bodies of water, but yeah, side scanning, it definitely, I would, like you said, I think it helps to level the playing field for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the guys that, that's their home lake, they know where all the brush piles were, years ago, and nobody else did, and they probably planted some of them. And now anyone can go out and scan around for a day and find those. There's no secrets really anymore like there used to be. And so, I see pluses and minuses to both. One thing that is kind of, a negative is to compete, you really need to have those electronics. And, bass boats are, the prices have went up astronomically. And there's still, you go to a college event and you'll see a guy in a 16-foot aluminum boat with a 40 horsepower, and you'll see guys in $120,000 fiberglass boats with 250s and 4 graphs and spot lock, and you see the whole gamut. But there's still the guys that do well that don't have some of the technology, but for the most part, you really need that to be able to compete, which that's kind of a drawback to spend that much money on a boat and equipment to compete at the next level. But it's become part of the sport.
What do I have, in my perfect utopian world, this is a real sport to me, and so I mean, you look at these young anglers coming up. My client, one of my clients is Major League Fishing. And so I see more on that side of things, these young anglers coming up fishing that tour, the Bass Pro Tour. And these young anglers are so phenomenal. They're incredible. They've got incredible skills, very, very talented. I think this new crop of anglers, the sport's never seen this level of talent before. It's like we've got a bunch of Kevin Van Dams now almost. It's kind of like
absolutely. Absolutely. We remember when Kevin was, not that he's not anymore, but he was winning everything. It kind of went through cycles where different anglers were winning everything, and I know you've been in the boat with Kevin and filmed him a lot. Just back then, Kevin's advantage was just how many casts he could make during a day and how far he could cast, and he just had the confidence. He knew going out that he was going to catch him. It didn't matter what lake he was on. And nobody was at his skill level. Now, there's 50, 60 guys that can go out and catch him, or even more. So the skill level is just incredible. And these guys, college fishing and high school fishing is almost like a farm system for them to compete and then advance, to the next level.
Right.
Many schools, and Drury's one of them, offer not only scholarships, but we're paying their travel expenses, their boat gas, their lodging, their food to compete on lakes that they're going to fish at the next level at some point. So it's a great, like I say, it's like almost a farm system, minor leagues to advance to the pro anglers. And sorry to cut you off there.
No.
Just kind of adding on to your point that, there was a handful of anglers back 15, 20 years ago that were at the top of their game. Now, I mean, you still have some of that, but on any given tournament, anybody can go out and win it.
Yeah, and on that whole farm idea, farm kind of system, it would be great to see, like you're talking about how expensive boats have gotten, the electronics. I mean, you look at the bow of a bass boat now, and it's getting a bit ridiculous. Let's be honest. I mean, you got to kind of be honest. Like, I mean, it'd be nice if that stuff could get integrated more. But right now, to have 3 graphs on the bow, and then they've got the Humminbird 360. Then they got the new Humminbird thing that'll lock on the live sonar. So you got 2 things hanging off the trolling motor, and then you got the down scan on the trolling motor. It's really, as a fisherman, it's really amazing. Like, I'd like to have all that stuff in my boat right now. The problem is, and if you can afford it, awesome. But the problem is, and this is what concerns me about the future and the health of the sport, is you could have a kid that has got all the talent, all the drive, all the passion that might be not able to, rustle up those resources to be able to afford to compete. That's my concern. And wouldn't it be nice in my utopic world, like maybe like in the high school, like you have levels, right? Like high school, you have, maybe it's just you can only compete out of an aluminum boat with a 90 or a 115 is the max for an outboard. And then when you get to college, I'm just throwing out, I'd like to see more of a tier-based system where someone could really prove themselves by not having to have such an outlay of resources just to be able to show how talented they are. Because right now, I mean, think of any other sport where to be able to compete, you need to have, I mean, think of just the tackle, then you have to have a boat, then you have to have all the electronics. It'd be nice if there was just a system where someone who's got the talent can, you know what I'm saying. So what are your thoughts on that? Is that ever a possibility? Is this a ridiculous dream? This will never happen. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I kind of like that idea and where you're going, and I agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of talented anglers that don't have the resources. Maybe they grew up, fishing in ponds and they've got skills, but they just don't have the resources. And that kayak fishing has grown, but there's even some kayaks that are several $1,000s, and they're turning around and putting 3 and 4 graphs on them. And it's going back to your what you said about you said about the graphs. I mean, there's so many up front that sometimes it's hard to even get on the bow of the boat and climb over your graphs to get in. But that's an interesting idea. That actually, back in my days with Bass Pro and White River, we did sponsor, I think it was the ABA, American Bass Association, where they had just an aluminum boat tournament. You had to have an aluminum boat with 150 horsepower or smaller, and had a decent turnout. So I kind of like your idea, and will it happen? I don't know. It's going to be tough. It's just become such a competitive sport, and with the technology, kind of leveling the field, so to speak, but in a way not leveling the field if you can't afford that equipment. So levels the field as far as your home lake advantages, I think. But yeah, it's a very interesting concept. I wouldn't mind seeing it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea. I have a kayak sitting out in my front yard right now. I've completely just slipped my mind about kayak bass fishing, how popular that's become. Like you could have tiers where, it's like kind of like racing. I admittedly, I don't know what the heck I'm talking about when it comes to like, motorsports, but I worked a little bit in that realm for a while. But like governors, aren't there like governors where you can, like on race cars, you can only go so fast or something? But like that should kind of be the system in bass fishing, where okay, when you're starting off in the minors, you start off very small. You're in a kayak, and then you move up to aluminum, and then what do you move up to 18 foot with a 150 horsepower as the cap, and then when you're fishing the Bass Pro Tour or the Elite Series, then go crazy. But until you're at that very top, you got to work your way up, and it would allow for people with less not as much cash or whatever, less in their bank accounts, to maybe just stair step their way up. And as I don't know, this is my dream fantasy bass fishing world.
Well, we got a dream, right?
Everybody's got a dream.
No, I think it's an interesting concept. I wouldn't completely disagree with it at all. I think it would be kind of neat to have a tournament, without electronics, and just, go use your instincts and, your knowledge on seasonal patterns and trying to find the fish. What I tell our guys, sometimes they rely on the electronics too much, I think. And I try to preach to them that, hey, these electronics are great and they work a lot of times, but there's some times where, they're not going to come into play depending on, the season, time of year, water temperature and all that, and even the water color, the, depth of the lake you're fishing. So you've still got to be able to have casting skills and skip your baits and get them, where they need to be able to fish shallow, have the instincts of, hey, they're going to be on stand-up timber or underneath docks. So I tell them, don't rely on that forward-facing sonar in your technology 100%. Still hone your skills, because if you want to fish at the next level, you've got to be able to be versatile and do everything, not just, hey, I'm a forward-facing sonar guy that can, drop shot and find them 25 feet deep. You've got to be versatile. So I try to let our guys understand that if they want to compete and even fish at the next level, they've got to be versatile and be able to do it all.
Rick, you're in your 8th season of coaching the Drury University bass fishing team. Congratulations on that, by the way. What's it like to be a head coach? Can you be in the boat with them as they're competitively, if they're in a tournament? What does that all entail? Like, what goes into being a head coach of a team like Drury?
Well, I kind of with my friends joke that being a college bass fishing coach is I'm an accountant, a travel agent, a cook, a babysitter, a psychologist, all that wrapped up into one. So but no, it's fun as far as coaching and what we can do once the tournament starts is coaches can't be on the water or be in the boat or even offer advice to our anglers once the tournament starts. Once practice week starts, we can't be on the water. We can't even talk to them about different techniques and things they should try. We try to do all that in advance. We'll have team meetings and we'll kind of do a lake study and talk about the body of water and what season it is and what the fish might be doing. Got a fly in here, but yeah, once the event starts, we can't actually coach. We're the only sport that probably is like that, where we can't give advice and coach our kids. So the guys have to find the fish on their own, which I understand. They want the guys and gals to go out and find the fish, not have advice from say a coach was a guide on Kentucky Lake, just throwing that out there. They don't want the coach, sharing waypoints and his spots and, hey, you need to go here and do that. They want the kids to find the fish on their own, because if they fish at the next level, they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to go to lakes they haven't been to and break down a lake in a day or two. And so I encourage our anglers to work together and share information with each other. They don't have to share waypoints or exact baits or anything like that. But, if guys come back from practice and one team, caught them pretty good, I want them to say, hey, we caught them, fishing brush piles or fishing, stick ups in 2 feet of water or fishing, 8 foot in grass or whatever. So I encourage our guys to work together. And, it's an individual sport, bass fishing, but it's also a team sport. And everybody wants to be the team that finished the highest for their school, but it's to our advantage for school of the year points and national ranking for our top 2 teams to do the best that we send to the events. Not just one team, but your top 2 teams count in the scoring system. So we try to take anywhere from 6 to 8 teams to events. Some of the local events will take more than that. We're getting ready to have an event in a couple weeks. I'm taking 14 boats to it. So that's always quite a challenge to get the boats gassed up at the gas station when 14 boats pull in and maneuver around the pumps and all that. But, it's like I say, I understand why we can't coach once the event starts, but it is a little bit frustrating not being able to offer advice. It's hard for me when they come back and talk about fishing not to say, well, why didn't you do this or why didn't you try that, So that's kind of what it is being a coach in college fishing is all about.
So if imagine, it's 25 years earlier, and I'm a young. Would that be? I'm terrible at math. But let's say, okay, I want to get started in your program. What's the commitment from a student that like what can they expect if they're in your program? Is this? I mean, how often are you guys fishing tournaments through the school year? And just. I guess we'll just start it that way. Like, are you guys doing stuff weekly, or are you guys just what's it? Does that make sense? I guess.
Yeah, I know.
It's been so long since I've been in college. I can't remember how anything works.
Well, we're also different than any other sport in that, the basketball team practices together every day on a basketball court. We don't go to the lake and practice every day with each other, but anytime our guys go and fish on their own, they're fishing non-college tournaments on weekends on their own. Anytime they're on the lake, they're practicing, they're learning. So we do have team meetings where we'll talk about, a body of water or, certain technique or have casting contests or that. We try to have inter-squad qualifying tournaments where we'll all go fish a lake and each person will bag their keepers and we'll weigh them, and I try to determine, our best anglers based on that. But I kind of know going in who, a lot of our top anglers are, just depending on the success they've had in high school. And I can fish with someone and tell just by the way they cast and their thinking process on how they're trying to find fish and how they operate a boat. I can tell, if an angler has what it takes or not. And fortunately, the kids I'm bringing in now have that passion and have those skills. But recruiting process, I kind of, pay attention to the high school tournaments, not only in Missouri, but, across the nation. I'll look at results. Bassmaster had a combine last week that I went to the first year. I wasn't able to go last week because of a conflict with a college tournament, but so it gives the coaches a chance to meet some of the top anglers, high school anglers from across the country. And I just, recruiting-wise, try to reach out on social media and introduce myself and try to get to know. You kind of know through that process, and there's actually a website that high school anglers can set up a profile and tell their strengths and weaknesses and their tournament performance in high school and all that. But one thing you can't completely judge an angler is based on their high school performance, because you have boat captains, and sometimes the guys that do have, or gals that do have success at the high school level, may rely on their boat captain. It may be a guide on the lake, or a tournament fisherman that's real serious that, depending on the state, they may, take them to their best spots and tell them what baits to use and where to cast and things like that. So you can't just completely rely on high school performance when you recruit kids to determine, if they're going to have success at the next level or not. So I kind of hope that answers some of your questions.
Yeah.
It may lead into some others, but
yeah. No doubt. So I wanted, we got earlier, we were talking about just the level of anglers that are coming up. And I attributed that mostly, or it's got to be just the college programs, like, is there any young anglers that you're seeing? Like, I think like Michael Neal, it's incredible the level of I just see it all the time. And the other thing too that I've noticed, like we were talking about Van Dam earlier. I used to think like the only way to be competitive nowadays was just to have that run and gun, just like seek and destroy. It wasn't really, Van Damme wasn't seek and destroy. It was like burn it all down. And you know what I mean? And then just,
Yeah.
and run into, but it's incredible just, and I don't know. It's got to be the college system. It's got to be the main reason that it's just producing such phenomenal anglers. But I do find it interesting that it isn't just, to be really good, you don't just have to have that Van Dam mentality. Like you can fish a little bit slower and more relaxed. I don't want to say it's too relaxed, but like a Michael Neal or like a Jordan Lee, and both of those were college anglers, right? Am I mistaken?
Yes. No.
Yeah.
You're accurate there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what are your thoughts on that? Like, you've got guys that I'm trying to think, like a Dustin Connell, or another good example would be a Justin Lucas. Justin Lucas is probably better. He's pretty fast. He's moving. He's hitting. Whereas a Michael Neal or a Jordan Lee are kind of like that Mark Davis kind of mentality. If we're going back to more, old school, like, anglers. Like, I guess Van Dam's an old school now, but like I just remember Van Dam. I'll never forget this. When I first started working with Van Dam, I asked him, other than himself, who is the best angler out there, and he said Mark Davis. And I mean, talk about two completely diametrically opposed, styles. And yet Mark was, here's Van Dam saying that Mark was the one he worried about the most. So I don't know. I'm kind of rambling here a bit, but like, I find that very interesting that you see that nowadays. And I'm kind of putting a bunch of stuff in this comment as far as like college and then also the different styles. But it's cool just to see that, that stuff is coming into the sport.
Yeah. I mean, back when, Van Dam was dominant and you and I both, got to be in a boat with him. The thing about him, the run and gun and burn it all down and his energy was, very accurate. He could cast a crankbait 20, 30 yards farther than the average guy. And by the time that crankbait was coming up out of the water, he was in motion into his next cast. He would get in throughout the day by fishing that way. He would get in probably 200-300 more casts than an average guy. And, that the more casts you get, the more time you get to fish, the better your odds are catching fish. So, but, it is funny where, guys like Mark Davis that slow down. I tell our kids this too. You're going to be able to catch fish on just about any body of water that you go to that fits your style. If you're a power fisherman, if you're a finesse fisherman, you can, depending on the lake and time of year, of course, but you can almost always be able to fish your strengths on different bodies of water. So you may see, the winner catch them on crankbaits and the guy that second was drop shotting in 30 feet of water. So, the guys with different skill levels can still have success on just about every body of water that they fish. But it is still important for them to be versatile as well. You got to be able to master just about every technique there is and be comfortable with it. Usually an angler is going to have his strength, but you still need to be very good at every technique there is.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, I hope that kind of covers what you asked.
No,
there,
I see that too. Like I'm not mentioning any names, but I see some anglers that are they're kind of set in their ways still. There's still some of those anglers out there, kind of old school anglers that they're like, well, this is what I do. This is, and I'm like, well, let me tell you, I'm in the boat with some of these young guns, and I got to tell you, they are going to wipe your, because they can do everything. They can do everything.
The guys that, pitching and flipping used to be really big back in the day. Now you don't see that very much. And some of the anglers that do it, of course, it depends on the body of water and time of year, but you would see guys pitching and flipping every tournament just about 20 years ago, and you don't see that much anymore. And the guys that's all they knew how to do, and that was their strengths, you're not seeing them have much success now. And we won't name names, but I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. It's just, I get it. I think as anglers, we can all kind of be set in our ways and like to catch them a certain way. I totally understand. I've done it. A lot of times I'll complain about certain things. I'll say, oh, why is this angle? And then I find myself doing the exact same thing that I was complaining about, while I'm out fishing myself. Like I just hard-headed, I get it.
Oh yeah.
I did want to say that, you'd won the Major League Fishing Collegiate Series national championship last year.
2021 season, yeah.
Yeah, congratulations on that. That's
Thank you.
Heck of an accomplishment. What was that like? Like getting prepared for that and then competing in the tournament?
Well, it was awesome. But yeah, we actually we did a little lake study, and before it went off limits, totally legal, I reached out to Edwin Evers, and he actually met some of our guys, and it didn't end up helping them in the tournament, but it gave them some areas that, kind of gave them some confidence on kind of what to look for that time of year. What body? Our guys had never even been on the lake, even though Grand Lake's an hour and a half from us. Some of the coaches said, hey, you had the home lake advantage there. And I said, our guys haven't fished it any more than your guys. But it was great and it was unfortunate because I was actually at another event another circuit scheduled an event right on top of it that I had, I think we had 6 boats on. So I had one of the dads go to the tournament on Grand Lake. So I actually wasn't there, but I got to see it online. So I did get to see them win. And it was pretty cool just seeing that. I hated that I wasn't there, which I'm never going to let that happen again. But anyway, yeah, just seeing the guys. We had a team that we finished, I think, first and third, maybe in fourth. But we had 2 teams right up there competing. And it was just so cool to see, the progression of these guys starting out and, winning a national championship in just a short period of time. It was just kind of a dream come true for all of us.
Yeah, you had a big year last year. You were also inducted in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame for your contribution to the sport of bass fishing. So big time congrats on that. That's a heck of an honor.
Oh man, I was just so humbled when they called me. I thought they were pulling a joke on me. What have I done to contribute? But yeah, very much an honor. Of course, my dad was inducted prior, and Charlie Campbell. So to be able to join those 2 anglers in the Hall of Fame related to bass fishing and my contribution was very, very humbling and flattering. And I get embarrassed, talking about it and stuff. But yeah, it's been unbelievable. And actually, in my Hall of Fame speech, I made the comment that, I thank Johnny Morris for one, and they did an interview with him that they showed up on the screen about me. But anyway, I said, now I'm coaching full-time over at Drury, and I really expect to win a championship sooner rather than later. And it was like 2 months later we won.
That's fantastic. Congrats,
yeah, it was unbelievable. So hopefully we can repeat in the future. But
yeah, congratulations, man. Thank you. I'm very happy for you.
I appreciate that.
So what is the future of bass fishing? What do you see as the future, technology? Are you of the opinion, as a fan of the sport and competitive bass fishing, without getting, obviously Major League Fishing is a very good client of mine. They're family. So I'm definitely biased towards Major League Fishing. But
sure.
do you do you think that for bass fishing to be a mainstream sport, first of all, do you care if it's a mainstream sport? But if we're trying to make it a mainstream sport, do you think that there can only be like one tour? You know what I mean? There's only one NHL, one NBA, one NFL, one PGA. Do you think for major league or for bass fishing to be a truly mainstream sport, that there can only be one tour?
That's a very good question. I guess I haven't thought about it too much, but there's definitely room with the number of anglers. There's several hundred anglers competing at all different levels. There's certainly room for that, and to have, now there's, kind of 3 upper level circuits, and I don't know if there's room for 3, but the NFL has, the AFL and NFL. So I'm like you. I know you're, dedicated to Major League Fishing, and back in my previous life, we sponsored all of the circuits, Major League Fishing and Bassmaster. So I have friends at all those circuits and levels. It does get a little bit, for lack of better words, confusing, or when, you're watching, Major League Fishing and they've got a different format, and, anglers, go jump back and forth between circuits, and you just wonder what the future is going to be like for that. So it is going to be interesting to see, both circuits can maintain, the levels that they're at now. The future, as far as technology, I just don't have any clue. Every year something comes out that just amazes me, and it gets better and better and better. And, the lures that we've got, some of these, swim baits and glide baits that are $250 that you couldn't tell if that wasn't a real fish or not swimming in the water.
I know. It's amazing.
Just, the rods and reels that we're dealing with. That's what is so unique about our sport, that I tell our athletic director is, college bass fishing is the most expensive sport to compete in. To play on the basketball team, you need basketball shoes and a uniform. We've got $80,000 boats and tow vehicles and $200 rods and reels and, $25 baits and stuff. So, and, we're burning through 100 gallons of gas on a practice day and tournament day. So you can imagine how much money we spend competing, taking 5 teams to 20 events throughout the year. You're talking, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's a little bit challenging. The school doesn't give me, that much on the budget. They give me about a third of what I need, but I'm raising probably 2/3 of it on my own, with some fundraisers, and actually giving a tracker boat away as a raffle in a contest coming up. But so I'm that's another part of my duties, is I'm a fundraiser as well. So add that to all those other duties. But college fishing, there's some changes that I think need to be made. I wish the organizations would be more concerned about the missed class time. We can't go spend 2 weeks on a body of water. There was one circuit that just told me that they scheduled an event in Florida so they could, there's another event that was going to be there the following week, so we could save our costs and not have to travel to Florida twice. Well, I said, man, we can't spend 2 weeks missing class down in Florida fishing. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. So I would like to see the college circuits be a little bit more concerned about the missed class time and working together to not schedule tournaments on top of each other. And, it's never going to be perfect, but I would like to see, a little bit more input that the coaches had with some of these programs. And I understand college fishing is a business, just like their pro circuits are, but they have to understand it is college, and kids are going to college, competing at a college fishing team to first and foremost graduate from college.
Right.
And fishing's, a secondary bonus. They're coming to fish, but if they don't get their degree, then I failed them as a coach. So just to be a little bit more concerned the future of college fishing with the anglers and working with the programs to make it where, we don't have to travel to 25 events just to be able to compete for school of the year. So that's what I would like to see in the future for college fishing.
So do you think there needs to be some sort of an organization, national organization? And honestly, I'm so stupid when it comes to sports, like mainstream sports. Bass fishing is all I've ever really read. Even though I'm wearing a Twins hat, a very dirty, disgusting Twins hat, by the way. But do you think that there needs to be some kind of a organizational body like the NCAA, like where in bass fishing, where there is more of a standard set?
Right now, there's 3 different collegiate organizations that.
And is that the problem, that there's 3 of them?
It could be. We have to fish all 3 organizations to be able to compete for school of the year and have our team ranked, which, kids want to come here because we have a top ranked program. So if you don't fish all the events, you're shooting yourselves in the foot and you don't get the quality anglers. So it's kind of a darn if you do, darn if you don't. Our school is very concerned about our missed class time. So, it would be nice to have kind of one governing body, but I understand that's probably not going to happen. We don't want this to become an NCAA sport because being a non-NCAA sport, we can have sponsors on our jerseys instead of just the team logo on our jerseys. Kids can fish tournaments on weekends, non-collegiate tournaments, and win money. So there's a lot of advantages to keep it from being NCAA regulated. So all the coaches and people I know want to keep it a non-NCAA sport. But yeah, to have one governing body, or at least the bodies work a little bit closer together to be more concerned about the college angler, would be nice.
Gotcha. Well, dude, I don't want to take up too much of your time, Rick. I already have, I'm sure, and I really, really appreciate just you doing this, and I know that, especially with, there's always some kind of technical glitches that happen with these podcasts. So, but overall, things have gone pretty well technically, not too terrible. So, fingers crossed. We're almost done. But I did want to bring up. So I know for certain I have one individual who listens to this podcast that does want to pursue a career in fishing. I think he's interested in becoming a professional bass fisherman, but you really need to have a plan B for that. But what advice would you give to someone, that a young person wanting to be a pro bass fisherman or wanting to get into the industry? If you can kind of give advice on both of those.
Yeah, what I tell high school anglers that want to fish in college and fish at the next level, and kind of I touched on this earlier with boat captains, but you've got to operate the boat, operate the trolling motor, make your own decisions. Do not rely on a boat captain or anyone else. You've got to do that on your own because you're going to be doing that at the college level. There's no boat captain. You have to trailer the boat, sometimes 16 hours to events. You got to be comfortable doing that. Time on the water there's nothing else that's more valuable than time on the water. Every time I go fishing, I learn something, whether it's right or wrong. A lot of times I learn what not to do, but you just need to spend time on the water. I can tell an angler's skills just basically by looking at how he casts and how he conducts himself on the water. So fish as much as possible, more time on the water, yet you still have to make good grades to be able to even fish in college. So the great thing about college fishing and even high school fishing is it's made anglers that or students that may not have even went to college, now they have the opportunity to go to college on a college fishing scholarship. But to do that, you have to have a certain GPA and an ACT or SAT score. So you definitely, if you're in high school and you want to fish in college, you have to study, get your grades up, keep them up, spend time in the classroom and time on the water as well. But that's my advice is time on the water, make your own decisions, find the fish yourself, do everything yourself. Operate the boat, take it, learn how to trailer, learn how to back a trailer. You need all those skills to be able to compete at the next level. As far as after that, from college on to the pros and being in the industry, social media is just unbelievably valuable now. You need to be keen on social media. The old school guys that aren't, you're actually seeing them lose some sponsorships, because if you don't move product and move the needle for the company that sponsors you and partners with you, you're of no value to them. So you have to become you have to understand that you need to be a brand representative for this company and your sponsor. You have to move product. You have to set good example. You have to always know whenever you're on the water, you're being watched. So don't, show bad sportsmanship or get mad or break your stern light over your knee and throw it in the water, things like that. But you're always, whenever you have that jersey on, you're representing your sponsor. So understand that. And you won't make it without sponsors. You can't, very few people have the financial ability to go out and fish on the pro level on their own. The old adage and joke is the best way to become a millionaire bass fishing is start with 2 million. And a lot of that's true. So if you want to fish at the next level, understand that your sponsor obligations are very important. Not just your fishing skills, that's a part of it, but you have to prove to your sponsors that you're a great brand representative and can move the needle for them.
That's so true. That is unbelievably valuable advice that you just got for free. If you're listening to this, that's so valuable. That's it right there. I'm telling you, I've been in the industry for 22 years, and Rick's been in there a little bit
37.
longer. But that's it. Like, please, if you're listening to this, you're a young angler, a young aspiring pro, or want to get into the industry, listen to what Rick just said there. You will not hear better advice. That's so good. That's it. It's as simple as that. You got to move the needle. Okay, this is so good. Well, my friend, thank you so much. I do just want to give you the last word here. Sell your program. You got any plugs you want to give? Sell Drury University. I mean, they have got a superstar with you, my friend.
Well, you're embarrassing me a little bit with that, but I appreciate you saying that. Drury's one of the top collegiate programs in the country. The great thing about Drury is we are concerned about your education first and foremost. It's not easy to get into Drury. You have to have good grades, but you're going to get a quality education plus a lot of valuable experience I can offer you. If you want to be in the industry, I can help you out. I can open some doors for you with our contacts. We have a Drury Bass Fishing Facebook page if you want to follow us. It's just Drury Bass Fishing. You can reach out to me. You can send me a message, and I can reach out to you if you're interested in learning more about our program. But Johnny Morris went to Drury, and he's a pretty successful business person. So if you want to get a great education, Drury's the place for you. And we also have a top bass fishing program. So reach out to me. I'd love to talk to any high school anglers that are interested. And appreciate you having me on the podcast, Greg. It's great to see you again. It's been a little bit. I think maybe the last time I saw you was either at an MLF event, or didn't we shoot a muskie show with Pete Mena many years ago? Yeah,
that's right.
That was a long time ago.
I know, it was a long time ago. We were shooting Next
Bite.
The Next Bite, yeah.
Yeah.
Pete Mena and Zona and right and
no, it was Brian Schramm.
Oh, right. Oh, so
yeah.
Okay, so it was Brian Schramm, Pete Mena, and Rick Emmitt, and we were on Lake St. Clair, if I'm not mistaken, in Michigan.
I caught my first muskie and I think it was over 50 inches. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I got that got in my blood.
It's amazing.
I'm ready to go back.
It's an amazing fishery. Lake St. Clair is maybe
Yes.
the best muskie fishery on the planet. But, dude, I have enjoyed this conversation so much. I knew that you would bring it. I love your knowledge of the industry. You have so much history in this sport, and it's just been a pleasure, man. You're always so down to earth, and I just love you, dude. I really do.
Feelings mutual, buddy. It's great to talk to you again. Hope to see you soon. And if you want to have me on, next year, give me a shout.
I definitely will.